Hey, welcome back, gents. It's good to have you all back here. Appreciate it. So
Good to be
on
here.
this episode, yeah, on this episode, I really wanted to start diving into, the Olympic sports and kind of their process, right? We touched on a little bit about the qualifications, the quota places, kind of how folks need to have beds, how the U.S. team really is almost self-funding in some ways. They have some, basic funding to kind of help them get there, but a big chunk of it is individual sacrifice for some of the shooters and some of the teams as well. But I was at the gun club just yesterday, and I was talking about the ISSF Skeet Ladies Final, and I was just surprised by how many people did not know anything about it, how many people did not understand how the ladies got there. They didn't understand the severity of the finals. So, if you don't mind, can you just educate all of us on just what does it actually take? What are the steps that it has to take? How does someone get into the qualification side of things, and then how do they make it to the World Cups and then also the Olympics?
Yeah, for sure. I could probably lead into that, and it's unfortunate if you look at like other competitive sports at the level that the international shooting is at. It's really unfortunate because you go to a pee wee football game, so to speak, right? You can talk to the kids, and every kid on the field knows that there's college football and they know that there's professional football. But you go to any youth shoot, I would challenge you to go to any youth shoot in the United States and ask the kids how many how many are in the Olympics, how many sports are in the Olympics, how many shooting sports are in the Olympic games, and you'd be surprised at the answers of how many people just don't even know that shooting is an Olympic sport.
Right.
So I mean that's part of our problem right there is just that marketing issue hasn't been out there so everyone knows that that Olympic sport is there and available if they wanted to chase it. But specifically talking about the Peru World Cup that just happened yesterday. Those folks, they went through a process of two different matches, 250 target matches over 5 days, basically 4 days of competition, 1 day of official training. So you're looking at a 10 to 12 day commitment to get these two matches in. One match was in Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan last summer. And the next match for them to qualify for that World Cup in Peru and the one in Buenos Aires also was followed up with an early January match in West Palm Beach, Florida. So, if you wanted to be on those teams, you had to have been at both of those matches and perform at a very high level. And they're right now, I believe USA Shooting is placing six individuals, 6 men, 6 women on the open national team, and then those they're seated with inside the team 1 to 6, and those people that get the 1, 2, and 3, they would be what we would consider a medal start position, or they're actually in that position to win a medal. And then the ISSF allows you to take two more shooters basically as kind of a training event. They call it ranking points only, or RPO. And it allows those shooters to work on their world ranking, but they're not allowed they're not eligible to compete in the final, even if they shot the best score on the range, which is kind of an
Interesting.
interesting concept, but it allows them to continue to work on that on their world ranking points, which is a big part of what the ISSF does and some of their awards and how they choose the World Cup final, which is a whole nother shoot where they, at the end of the year, they take the 12 top shooters, trap, men's trap, women's skeet, men's skeet, and they bring them to a location and they have like one final hoorah, big match, and it's more of a celebratory match than anything. It has a lot of prestige with it because you're basically competing with the best in the world from that year. So that's how you get to those, and then the selection process right now is an ever evolve. It just keeps going to the next match. So as you shoot the next match, one match will fall off of your match. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but say you shot match one and you shot match two, and that qualified you for X amount of events, depending on what USA Shooting decides, the time period or whatever. And then you would drop shoot one and you'd shoot three, and then it'd be shoot two and shoot three, then would qualify you for the next section of events or, world championships or World Cups as you're seeing now. So it's quite a process, and you at least have to get those 250 target matches in. So it's quite a commitment, like I was saying earlier, from the athletes, not only financially, but just a time commitment to be able to go to
Right.
these matches, not even taking the time to prepare for them.
So Jay, how many people are starting out in the initial qualification phase, would you say, an average in the US?
Well, unfortunately, right now our skeet numbers are dwindling, and that was always a concern of mine when I was head coach, is trying to bolster those skeet numbers and find those skeet shooters somewhere out there. They got to be out there, but our skeet numbers are kind of dwindling right now. We've been bringing about 72 to 100 skeet shooters to a selection type match like that, and typically we're running about 115 to 185 on the trap side. So 185 is a full load for a trap shoot on 5 fields. The way that it's ran, the way it consecutively works, it's an all day event with 185 shooters. So fortunately for trap, it's been pretty steady, pretty full. I think we've been pushing that 120 number pretty steady on most of these matches, but definitely skeets on the dwindling side. Yeah, needs to take a look, try to pump up our skeet numbers a little bit for the US.
We've seen a good rise in junior trap shooters. There was a lot of junior trap shooters at the last two selections.
Any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on why skeet's dwindling over bunker trap?
Well, I was kind of thinking out loud yesterday, and I wonder if they're, a product of their own success. You know what I'm saying? Because right now we have 6, 7 of the badassest women in the world skeet shooters. I'll be honest.
Well, Vince and Kim and Dania, right?
On yes,
just
Sandy,
the women,
Caitlin. Right. I mean,
Samantha, I believe too.
Yeah,
what have we had? 5 different world champions and over the last 2 quads, or 6 different world champions, or something like that.
So they've dominated so much, people are afraid to even try, huh?
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking out loud to myself.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Like, wow, maybe I'll wait a few years till they age out, and then you have to look at the longevity of the sport. Obviously, some of these top athletes, especially overseas, we had the guy from Kuwait, and I'll think of his name here, Al Rashidi. He was 60 years old. He won a silver medal. It's like, wow, this is insane. The age and longevity of careers right now. So, I think that's part of it right now. And the other part too is just, I think, just doing a better job of getting out there and mining these youth organizations and trying to find that feeder program where we're feeding that skeet program just a little bit more aggressively.
And it was like Jay and I both said earlier, we both got an opportunity to be introduced to the International Olympic Bunker Game.
Right.
There's not much of that going on right now. There's not a lot of guys that are saying, hey, I'm going to set up a fund, whether they have had some problems with USA Shooting or they're waiting for them to get their funding together more or whatever it is. We're just not seeing that. I mean, travel, hotel, everything's a little more expensive now. Traveling's got quite a bit more expensive. And then you add ammo prices and everything on top of it. And that's just the icing on the cake, right? But I mean, I think there's a lot of these, guys have to get involved to help some of these feeder programs. And you're just not seeing it, and I don't think USA Shooting's really in a position where they're being able to do that. But it's finding some partners or somebody that's interested in, I really think the older generation, when I was a junior and coming into the men's, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, there was a lot of guys that were very passionate about keeping the sport growing, whatever it is, shotgun sports or shooting sports, period. And you're just not seeing that on the international level. You're seeing a lot more on the American level with all these SETP teams, high school teams, all this. I mean, man, what an improvement. I mean, what a growth that has happened. It just amazes me. I wish there was that when I was in high school, right? We went to some trap shoots. I was like on the FAA shotgun or trap team, and we'd have a state shoot, but that was about it. There, it was kind of off radar of everything. It wasn't considered, a school team, but I don't think we're seeing much of that right now. And it really takes guys that put a fund together and say, hey, let's find 8 top American trap shooters. We need to go find some top American skeet shooters or sporting shooters that like skeet,
Right.
and just introduce them to it. You never know what kid's going to get addicted to it.
Is it any coincidence that a lot of the folks that are right now competing are in their early 20s, 30s, where they have a little bit of establishment, they're a little bit more mature, they may have a secondary job. In fact, if you could answer that, it'd be great if they do, or they're well supported by sponsors or other things. Or the youth, Gary and I have talked about this a lot, where a lot of folks think that the future of many of these sports is the youth. And, sometimes we've talked about it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Gary, but we've always felt like maybe Gen X and millennials might be the future of the sport, because they actually have the disposable income to actually get into all these things. And with the cost of travel, the cost of all the other things, the younger folks and maybe their parents aren't willing to make those commitments. What do you think?
You got to have a disposable income, and that's a big part about it because most of you're burning your money.
Yeah,
When you're out there shooting, it's gone.
literally out of your barrel.
It's got consumables, just like anything. Shotgun shells are consumable, and the target's consumable.
Right.
While I love having the youth organizations across the board, I personally would like to go after um, the guys with a little bit of money to get rid of. The other part of that one is, we talk about funding all the time, of funding the different organizations, funding USA Shooting. Um, why the junior shooting program has been huge, junior Olympic program has been huge. We also need somebody to fund USA Shooting. We have to go after the guys willing to give up some money to help, but then again, we also have to have some kind of connection to USA Shooting. It can't be this, pariah or whatever you want to call it, where nobody really knows about it. Like you just talked about earlier about, ISSF shoots going on and nobody wanted to put it on the TV.
Yeah.
I tell you an interesting one, Jay Lance. We talk about trap growing as much as it has. When Dad was shooting bunker back in the '60s and early '70s, there weren't a lot of bunkers, and
Mhm.
that was, Dad would go to Benning. I believe there was a bunker in California, and there might have been one in Kansas City. He shot a lot of qualifiers off a wobble, off a
Mhm.
modified wobble trap to make it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
Crazy.
the other thing, I think I remember when I first come in this game, you could sit there and count every bunker on one or two hands.
Right.
And you had uh LA had 3 bunkers or whatever from the games, and you
Yep.
had Benning, and then you had Colorado Springs that had 4, and then there was some singles around,
Yeah.
Renton and
New York
here and there, right? And
City. Yeah, he said he made a qualifier. Whatever, he was going to Mexico City, and most of the guys qualified off of
Yep.
modified wobble trap,
Wobble
sitting on
trap.
top of
Yeah.
the box.
Yep. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
You know,
they were tougher. They were tougher back in the days. They shoot an ounce and a quarter, 3 1/4.
Yeah.
yeah.
now
Well,
these
Yeah.
one ounce crap,
luckily,
right?
luckily we've had a huge interest from the NRA Foundation and Midway Foundation too, and they've
Right.
really been working hard on some of these range grants and trying to get these bunkers built so there's more facilities for these kids. And I think that, like you're saying, that is kind of what's driving the international trap, because bunker's a spectacle. A skeet field's a skeet field. You see it at every international skeet field is the same as an American skeet field. The birds are just faster and you shoot them different. But an American trap field and an international trap field are quite stunningly different. So it brings
Yeah.
that attention to that bunker a little bit. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
a lot of these clubs that are these ski clubs, they don't like to mess with their targets and speed them up and make them go
Yeah.
fast for the kids, and so there's a bit of that tug and pull back and forth a little bit, I think, on the skeet side, where the guys that are in it like it is, and and they're not just like, oh yeah, we'll set some faster targets for little Johnny so he can go to the JOs. It's just not that accessible, as I guess.
Guys, the way the sponsorship work, and I'm really glad to hear that NRA and Midway are supporting it. Those are great organizations helping the shooting sports. But Shooting sports ever since, I've gotten into it, I always kept hearing, oh, there's a stigma. Oh, there's a stigma. Oh, we can't put guns in our logos because, people are going to get upset about it. And there's always been this mentality that guns are negative. And I feel like the Olympics is one of the avenues that we can make a positive perception or, viewpoint of shooting through the Olympic sports, but we're just not putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. And it's much more accessible to a wider audience, right? So the wider audience doesn't feel bad about it. I mean, you saw in this last Olympics where that guy who's shooting, I'm sorry, the pistol game where he's
Yeah.
aiming and he became a big meme. What was his name from wherever he was?
Uh,
Cyprus or something.
yeah,
And he became a big meme, and that became a thing that spread amongst people that weren't shooters as well, right? And I almost
absolutely.
feel like we need something like that where, I mean, it's probably not as exciting.
Well,
We don't look as cool, but there's got to be something around that. Vince and Kim, I think, have done a great job with their accolades and their accomplishments. But how do we get more of the focus and positivity around Olympic shooting to just the general world in general?
it's difficult because we're politically incorrect in
Yeah.
this country. We have a fight against our Second Amendment,
Hmm.
and depending on the stations, and the main station that's always done the Olympic Games was anti-gun, right? And it's always been interesting to me. I did a lot of stuff for the National Wild Turkey Federation, and I made some really good um, connections there and friendships, right? One of them was with Wild Turkey. And I always tried to get Wild Turkey, hey, would you do a little sponsor? I'm not asking for a lot, a little sponsorship. And they're like, well, I don't know. I was good friends with these guys, right? And
Right.
it's like, well, guns and drinking. And I was like, well, you certainly don't have a problem sponsoring a race car. Now
Right.
that's drinking and driving. So why's the
Right.
gun thing? It's not like I'm drinking and shooting, just like you're sponsoring this whoever's it was race car at the time.
You bring up a good point, Lance. I think we've been too afraid just in general. We've been brainwashed into thinking that everything's bad and we're bad and we're up against a common enemy here. But with the current administration in place, not to get into politics and everything, I think the road is available, right? I think we could potentially, I'm just throwing out ideas, but potentially get additional support towards this, right? Because it feels like now's the time to kind of move forward towards this and to break away any kind of bad perceptions about clay shooting, to make folks realize that it's a family sport, to make sure it's a competitive sport that's valid and part of the Olympics, and that we've got some heroes out there that are representing our country and representing us well, actually. And we're not even giving them the attention that they deserve.
Right. I think there's two things that they have to get out there for to grow it a little bit on the money side. You have to be able to have some partnerships or sponsorships for the shooters that
Yeah.
are outside of the industry. Everything
Right.
right now, for the most part's inside the industry. There's a little bit outside, but you've got to find more outside the industry. And the other thing you have to get out there for and to bring the money in to support these athletes is that most people don't realize that our game is one of the only games, the shotgun shooting, that it costs you every time you pull the trigger. You
Right.
have to pay for a practice target and a shell. And trap, you shoot two shells a lot of times, right? And their targets are a little bit more expensive because they're the international target. And I think a lot of people don't understand that there's all these sports you can go and practice for free. I can go practice my running out on a track for free.
Right.
I can keep flinging arrows in a target in my backyard.
You could
I
go
can
golfing for $60, right, for a whole round.
Right. I can go buy a thing of balls. I can
Right.
go and sit and chip all day for free,
Right.
practicing my chipping. But a shotgun, every time you go to practice, it's costing you money.
So
And
Gary,
around today, a good priced round is $10 for bunker. And we're talking on average, around $10 a box.
right.
Maybe you're fine. The guys are getting some deals around 850 a box. But when you're on average shooting a box and a half to almost two boxes around, you can look at around easily a practice round, a bunker costing you $30.
Right.
And a practice round of skeet's going to cost you $20.
Gary, you've been on the advisory council and the executive council, and what have you seen, or also just in your experience having been in the sports for so long, the fundraising aspects of the NSCA, the USA Shooting, are they focused on reaching out to third party outside of the shooting community sponsors, or has that always just been a let's not even try it?
It's across the board, and this not to generalize these organizations, but just like what Lance was saying and Jay, it's just there's a stigma associated with it, and I almost feel that they're okay. This is how it is. Nobody's interested in our bullshit. Um, we're not gonna. We're done reaching out. You know what I mean?
That's too bad.
They've almost felt like they've given up. Um,
Yeah.
and a little bit of gatekeeping too.
Oh
You've
yeah, I
got
bet.
looking at the one demographic, and this is how it's always been, and we're not trying to go after anything more than what we got now.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, just like I said, same old, same old.
Yeah.
Uh,
I hear a lot about how the politics side of it kicks in and, there's us against them and that kind of thing. I got to tell you, being here in California, I know a lot of folks that are left leaning that shoot guns and don't have problems with guns. And I wonder if we isolate a lot of those people by always saying that, they're all against us. And then we don't get support from those folks because we're isolating them. But not to get into politics, but I just wanted to put that out there. I think sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot. Bad pun, but you know what I mean. Um,
Well, I wanted to
Pretending
loop
that
back
it's always a
around on this a little bit because I
yeah,
think that COVID actually, COVID was a horrible thing, and we could talk about that for days of days. But there is, I'm kind of a silver lining guy, and the silver lining that came out of COVID was all this digital streaming for the Olympic Games, right? So before, like Lance mentioned, NBC own the rights to broadcast all the shooting sports, right? So, and they could choose to broadcast it, they could choose not to broadcast it. But if they chose not to broadcast it, no one else could broadcast it unless they bought the rights from NBC, and they just weren't willing to sell them. Right. So that was a huge problem for a lot of years, right? Where we were getting nothing. And then what happened in 2020 in Tokyo 2021 is nobody was allowed to come, right? So they
right.
lost that whole audience. So then they're like, wow, what are we going to do? How are we going to reach this audience? And so that's when the streaming piece came in like it did. And it really did allow a bigger platform for shooting because people could search around, hey, shooting, I'm interested in that. I want to watch that. I'm going to watch that, so I think, and then again in Paris in 24, was the same deal. Like you could find shooting, on the Olympic page, and you could go there and you could choose to watch it. Whereas before, that whole COVID experience and that didn't broaden out to that wider audience, that it just wasn't even there. So I think that now is the time to strike on that and really push those avenues of those streaming venues to our audience so that we can push those numbers. Because at the end of the day, what the International Olympic Committee is looking for is viewership, right? They want viewership. Viewership means sponsorship, right? So if your viewership isn't to a point of where they consider you a viable candidate to bring them sponsors, well, then you're gone, right? So it's really important that holistically the international shooting world really start working on pushing those numbers and pushing our viewership up, and we can do that with the streaming platforms and better video in our finals and stuff. It's just like our finals now. We had a previous administration with the ISSF, and they had a huge push for finals. We had video replay on hit and miss. We had all this stuff. It was super. I mean, they made a huge deal of trying to make it super professional, but it cost a lot of money. I mean, it was like a $300,000 production when you get done with it. And it just so happened that, the president of the ISSF had a few billion in the bank, and, he didn't mind just writing that check every once in a while to have that because he wanted that type of production and that was important to him. And then when we changed, leadership, that became not as important, and now they're starting to look at that and go, oh, wow, we need to start, working on getting our viewership up in our finals so that we can sell sponsorship so that we have those viewers and we can stay viable. So,
What's crazy to me is that we have the numbers. I mean, if you include hunters, which are in the millions in the U.S., and then competitive shooters, which are in the tens of thousands in the U.S., we're just not. It just seems like we're just not marketing it right, right? Like my anecdotal example of going to the gun club and no one even knew this stuff was going on. I mean, that's just terrible, right? The gun club should have like posters and things, updates about this kind of stuff happening this time. Go watch it. It should be I don't know. Gary, you
yeah.
were going to say something?
well, everybody likes to point blame, and I'll go ahead and throw a little bit of shade. And A lot of the times when you get to these, throw in these, whatever association is, right? A lot of the guys that are, this is an opinion, that comprise the board are older guys, right? Not, is 60 plus, right? Well, like Jay said, we have this amazing tool called social media, the internet. It's a new thing. It's going to stick around. I believe it is that we can access, that we can put up there for free, that we can whatever. And it's not being utilized by the NSCA, ATA, I mean, USA Shooting. It's not being utilized to reach people. It's fucking free, man. For the most part, put up an Instagram, put a YouTube video up, whatever, just like you're doing, Henning, if you want to release it. But these guys, not their fault. They came about before computers. They don't understand it, but they don't also want to adopt it.
Sure.
There is, I mean, I could
Do
say,
you, do you see that shift changing there a little bit, Gary? I'm noticing, and I don't want to name the organizations, but I'm noticing in organizations that, and again, nothing against the generations here, but the boomer generation did things one way, and they did it well, and they did it well up to a certain point, right? And now Gen X has kind of taken on leadership roles in different organizations, and we'll see if they do well. I mean, I'm part of Gen X. I know you are as well, Gary.
I don't know.
We don't know, right? Honestly, because we're now in a whole new world compared to what the quote unquote boomers were under. So we have to adapt to a newer world if we're taking on leadership's position. This is happening in every industry, by the way, not just shooting.
They got to listen to us, though, Henning. They got to
Right.
be They have to listen to us. And there's a little bit of gatekeeping at that hierarchy of the upper levels of like for example, I'll give the example and whatever, maybe they can sue me. It won't be the first time I've been sued, but my thing was, I mean, yeah, I'm 47. I've been sued 5 times, and I'm okay with it. Um, but anyway, so once I said when I got on the AC and all the other bullshit for USA Shooting, my thing was fundraising, fundraising, fundraising. And like these guys are saying, we go to a World Cup shoot, whether it be whatever, shotgun, pistol, or rifle, which we don't even need to get into the pistol and stuff. But it'd be like, hey man, no one has anything on the internet about this. There's nothing on Instagram. There's nothing on Facebook. It is not publicized. Nobody has a fucking clue on when the times are, when the shoot offs are, who's involved, right? The pinnacle of shooting, right? The pinnacle, the top tier, and nobody is publicizing a damn thing about it. And I said, hey man, for the price of a plane ticket and a hotel room, we'll get I don't, Jay probably remembers this. We talked to Derek about it. I
I
said,
remember it.
we'll get a group of guys together, a little team that has some time off that you get us a plane ticket, and this guy will go to Morocco. This guy will go to Peru. He's happy to help. He will take some pictures. He will put the shit on Instagram. He'll engage. He'll talk to some shooters, do some candidates, whatever, man. That's all this person's going to do, whatever their gender, whatever they identify as fucking tree stuff. I don't give a shit. As long as we got stuff up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in our funding. Wasn't in
So
our
yeah,
budget.
there has to be a media presence, right? What we're finding is everybody's using TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, etc., Facebook to reach audiences. They're great marketing tools. That's all they should be used for, not for entertainment, but for marketing tools. And if we're lacking that, and the reason, not to pat myself on the back, but the reason why I started California Clays, not this podcast, but the Facebook group originally, is because each of the disciplines in California didn't speak with each other. And each of the disciplines had shooters that didn't even know about each other or even know about the sports and when to shoot them and how to shoot them and didn't know what website to go to because they were using archaic websites that were hard to decipher and figure out where you're shooting on a weekend. And I was fortunate enough to, be introduced by a good friend of mine to all the different disciplines when I first started. And when I realized it was like, okay, well, no one knows how to do any of this stuff unless they know someone that can introduce them to it. So we started that group to post about all the shoots and promote all the gun clubs and talk about all the disciplines. And more people started gravitating towards that. So it's really about creating, again, it comes back to marketing, selling the goals, the vision, but also talking about, I think, the sport from a sense of not just shooting, but like these are athletes that train their minds, that overcome mental obstacles, that have the mental fortitude to handle high pressure. I mean, those are all the themes that we're dealing with here, right? That you as coaches have had to help these folks and individuals with. And I think that's really the messaging to these sponsors, right? Overcoming extreme challenge and pressure. And it sounds like that's not what's being communicated, right?
Not at
Am I
all.
just assuming? Okay.
No, you're not at all. There's just no marketing being done. I mean, it's just like it just blows my mind. I mean, I know about it. Obviously, Jay and Lance know about it. I know about it from family involvement, friend involvement. Been in this shit forever. But there's guys we are not reaching who we need to reach. We do
Right.
not. We just and it's easy to reach them. We don't want all right. Hey, we're all sitting around at dinner. Let's take some pictures. Let's do a human element. Just bring somebody in. Maybe a person identifies with this person. You
Right.
know, so either they're going to get involved with shooting, either as an athlete or as a donor.
Right.
But all they do is see a name and they don't even understand the scoring system. And I don't know about you guys. It's like any internet. If you're very familiar with a internet web-based program, right? You're good. Uh, we're good with Clay Score Chaser, right? Right, Henning? We understand how that works.
Absolutely. It's a great site.
Great program. There's a lot of this stuff that you go to ISSF's website,
Right.
and I'm explaining it to people because it is confusing. That's the
It
whole
is.
idea.
Yeah.
It's we gotta get it where people can access it.
Well,
And
what did Lance say earlier? Keep it simple. I
yeah,
mean, that's how it's got to be. So Lance and Jay, if you guys in an ideal world could come back to USA Shooting and unlimited funds, unlimited money, what would you guys change right now to help them get more exposure or change the sport in whatever way you think it needs to be changed?
Hmm. You gonna let me go first? Well, one, support the team. I think that's the biggest thing. Get the team supported and try to get them some training and living expenses so they can afford to do what they do, so that we can, there's a huge void. You have these junior shooters coming up, and mom and dad are paying the bills and da 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 until they go to college, and mom and dad usually are still involved when they're in college, and a lot of them get to shoot there. But then once they're out of college, it's time to adult, and that mom and dad are done paying the bills, and they're done, making that happen. And we lose a lot of these shooters that we have 5-6 years in already, and they go to the wayside because they have to start adulting. So that'd be one thing for sure, is try to support that demographic to keep, so you're not starting over again all the time. You have this cachet, I guess, of 5 or 6 year, experienced shooters that are ready to make that next step. I'm just thinking, reality TV. You're on the road with the U.S. shooting team. There's plenty of drama. There's plenty
Oh, that'd be great.
of personalities. There's plenty of all of that stuff. I think that.
I mean, if they could do it for, the Tour de France, I'm sure they could do it for this, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the latest rage, full swing. What, Formula One's on there now? The tennis,
Right.
the tennis has got a deal. I mean, it's just a no brainer to me that
It
that
would
would
be super interesting.
Oh yeah, there's so much drama and team inner workings that we won't even get into here. But
And dealing
actually,
with
hold
the
on.
other quarantines,
Yeah.
the battles, the standing up to them, the BS.
Oh, really? So there's drama between the teams sometimes.
Oh yeah.
a
Well,
lot.
and they're always trying to pull
It is
maneuvers on us.
a lot of A-type personalities in one room. You tell me. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
Interesting.
interdisciplines are great. That is some really good conversations between us and the rifle and the pistol nerds.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely needs to be better marketing or more marketing on
Yeah,
the internet and everything. Jay and I tried to do a lot of that just to promote our team because we had a lot of people come to us. They may not be too um, excited to work with USA Shootings, a few of these
Yeah.
companies from whatever the past or whatever, but they liked our program or what we were doing as people and would want to help support our program. And, I put out quite a bit of social media and so did Jay. And we even got our hands slapped a few times, people thinking we were trying to promote ourselves. And it's funny because everything I did was about the athletes to
Sure.
just get it out there. What are they doing? Look, they're doing well. They're getting ready. This is where
Right.
they're at. And
I think that'd be great. I wanted to do a series called Road to Masterclass for NSCA shooters and follow like a junior, a lady, and a male who were going through the rankings to get to Masterclass. But I think it'd be much more interesting to see the Olympic process and folks from the beginning through their qualifications, through the World Cup championships, through the stuff that ends up happening as the, at the conclusion of the Olympics. You guys watch Formula One?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously.
so I mean they do
You
that
need
really
to be
well. We try
ready
to do
by
that.
2026 World Championships. You need to be ready because that's when it really starts. So.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I try to do something similar for Halise at the Stockton shoot. I made a little documentary about that and along the same lines. But yeah, I agree with you guys. I think there needs to be something. There needs to be something, and it's a shame that there isn't, to be honest, you know?
Right. And the last piece of my puzzle pie would be just to have a very a futures program or that junior program where you're really building that future and have a full staff down there, because a lot of what's happening now, well, and it's happened in the past, is the juniors just get left behind because the people that are there, they're focused on the main athletes and getting that job done, and the juniors are just kind of left to flounder, and then and a lot of times they'll end up in a coaching camp, which is not the best situation for them, and it sets them back a little bit, takes a little bit of time, a little bit of learning before they get out of that situation. So it'd be really nice to have some sort of structured system that you could identify that talent early and then, keep that direction. Just like I was talking yesterday, keep teaching that motion offense all the way through so that we're all teaching the same thing and,
Right.
And they're ready to go when they get there instead of having to rebuild all the time. So
Unprogram somebody's hard, Jay.
yeah, I know.
Anything to add, Lance?
I was being nice, wasn't I? Yeah.
No, I think a grassroots
Yeah.
that junior program's huge, and that's we were getting close to that at times, and just when I'm thinking a lot of times USA Shooting's getting over the hump financially or whatever, we seem to have whatever happen in a spell again, and then we got to build the financials back up, and that's what we're all kind of sitting here talking about is how to make this thing a little more consistent for them, and the grassroots program's everything.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta have a group coming in to replace the guys as they retire, because anytime you're at a top level of a sport like this, especially in trap, you get beat up over the years and the rounds.
Right.
When you're not setting up and you got to get in a gun hard and you don't know what's happening, there's a lot more injuries in trap or things that wear out down the years. But guys get burnt out. They've been to it all. They get to it and they're ready to move on. They don't want to put that effort into it. Might be a different story if you were making a half a mil or a mil or 2 mil shooting. It's a little easier to get motivated. But when you're always having to do the extra, that's why I guide every winter. I've guided for 34 seasons now, and that's how I got into guiding, and I beat the hell out of myself for 3 months on horseback elk guiding. But that's what I needed to do in the off season to build my money, so I could train and I could get the amount of what I needed, I felt I needed. And, and I just think that's a big piece of it. And it's getting it out there. It's having that program. It's supporting these guys, being able to pay for everybody to go over there. It's more expensive now, but you don't need to just pay for the 3 top medalists. In a perfect world, if you could take 2 RPOs, you want to take RPOs and you want to be able to pay for them too, because you need these guys getting that experience and learn how to travel, learn how to get over jet lag, learn how to compete on the world stage. And you know what? There's a learning curve for most guys going over there and learning how to do that and just being comfortable competing against the other people in the world.
Right.
You just need some experience. And a lot of times, if you're not taking these extra guys and helping them get experience, when they do make a team, they go over and they have a rough time.
Right.
And you need that. And you need that. They get one shot over there and they don't do well and they can't get any more experience. They can't afford to go be an RPO. They can't afford to pay their own way. They're struggling to. They fall short, so you're only got a select few getting all the experience all year long. And that was really a nice thing when I was younger. That's one thing Lloyd, they had the budget for, is they'd get Back then they called it MQS, not RPO, but you had guys, and there was a lot of guys being able to get some.
And sorry,
Uh,
what are the acronyms, Lance? Minimum qualifications, something, and ARP. What is it?
yeah, MQS was minimum qualification score, and now they've changed it to
Okay.
RPO.
Which is
Well, Eddie the Eagle, right, took a lot of publicity with the long jump because they used to just give every country 3 beds
mm,
for per sport or whatever, right? And then so they had to control the beds. But he went over there just because he was from a country that didn't really do ski jumping and could go ski jump. Now
okay.
he couldn't even compete close to anybody in the field, right? But he got all the press, and the Olympic Committee didn't like that. They wanted the press on the elite athletes, the top athletes.
Got it.
So then they developed scores. You had to qualify in all your events. You had to be able to compete so good, whether it was the 100 meters or 200-meter dash or whatever. You had to have at least a qualifying time, right? If you couldn't run this time, you weren't going to be able to go to the games. Same thing in shooting. You weren't going to be able to compete in the Olympic Games if you couldn't break that minimum qualifying score that they wanted.
And that's what breakdancing's
That.
doing right now. Breakdancing's working on that minimum qualifying score right now.
Well, how do you do it in breakdancing? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm
I'm
all
not
for
sure,
it,
but I guarantee you they're doing
but
it, man. Yeah.
it's
There goes my dream. There goes my Olympic dream.
Yeah.
I wanted to add to this too, though, real
Yo,
quick,
please.
that I think that USA Shooting right now is on the cuspice of where they're gonna where before always like we talked about yesterday, you know, it's coach driven and that type of thing where we're kind of moving away from that one person or you know that one coach overall, and it's more open to the personal coaches, which is very much like all the rest of the Olympic sports. I mean, you look at gymnastics or any of these high profile sports, swimming, right? There's multiple coaches on the ground, and each one of these people have their own personal coach that's there just for them. You know what I'm saying? And so I really think that it's moving to that model, but the reason it works in gymnastics and golf and all these other things, like Lance was saying, because they could win $4 or $5 million and then they can spread it out with their team. And then everybody's like, hey, man, that was worth it. I want to go with to you overseas, you know, but with no money in the game right now, you know, even if they win a world championships and you know, maybe an Olympic medal, USOC gives them a little bit of money for winning an Olympic medal. You know, if USA Shooting's not, you know, down in the dumps, they throw in a couple bucks, but it, you know, might add up to 50, 60 grand, you know, but it's not like lifetime changing money for you. So, but, yeah, so I see that happening too, which is we'll have to figure out a way to pay for that a little bit, I guess, too. What's coming down the pipe for how it's going to get paid for.
You guys mentioned grassroots, and not to pivot off of that, but I think we covered that topic pretty well. But I've been hearing. I don't know anything about it other than what I see on social media about this. But it seems that there's been an increasing on the grassroots level claim of shooters claiming to be Olympians or affiliated with the Olympics, and maybe even coaches as well that claim that they're part of the Olympic team or whatever it is. I don't know the details about it. Gary, I think you have commented on it before, at least in general. But how do you guys feel about that? Is that something? Is that a real thing, or misrepresentation, or?
You jumping
Yeah.
in first, Gary, or you going to let me go?
I mean, yeah, there's once again the bad side of social media. There's a lot of people play very ambiguous with the truth, and they play fast and loose with people that don't know any better.
Right.
Is it, to summarize this statement, is there are a lot of people out there that will use words and use, whatever outright lies unless they're checked on it to represent themselves in a certain way. There was a few years back, gosh, I don't even remember what it was. NRA did an instructor's program for shotgun, right? And at the time, I believe it was some affiliation with USA Shooting. So basically, you could, on paper, or according to them, you could become a, U.S. Olympic coach by
Mm,
passing these tests. I mean, I don't comment if you don't want to. And I can't quite remember the thing, but there are a few guys that are passing themselves off as an Olympic bunker coach because they took a class.
gotcha.
And They
So,
do.
that sounds like it's a nomenclature piece, and and I'm wondering if USA Shooting has any mechanisms or standards for clarifying that these are, and like I said, level one instructors or something versus a Jay and a Lance who actually coaches and trains Olympic athletes.
I'm just going to jump in and say I think that in any sport at this level, you're going to have this type of thing happen. So I don't think it's unique to USA Shooting or the
Okay,
shooting industry as a whole. But it is, it's unfortunate, and I'm a firm believer of karma and character, and your character. If your character's such, your karma's going to come back and kick you in the ass when you least expect it.
absolutely.
So it is what it is for me, and it pains you because you know what everybody puts into it for these to have these accolades that have actually been there, done that, and put themselves out. And then for someone, it's like the stolen valor.
Yeah,
I feel the same
say
way.
that. Yeah.
Stolen valor for sure. It's just like why? Yeah, to me, it's incomprehensible. But
What would you say to young shooters and parents who might be confused by the marketing claims and from coaches and other shooters? Like, how do you tell them, hey, look, this is reality. This is not reality. This is where you can go verify if this claim is true or not.
Well, and I think a lot of that's happening as Lance and I grow Elite Shotgun Academy. I think that people are going to see, the true message and get a really good bang for their buck on these whole skill set level and knowledge of the game and the whole thing. And then those things are going to proof themselves out. The proof's in the pudding kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? You got X, you got Y. Choice is yours, right? You can go over there, you can come over here. You can see what's happening there, and then hopefully that's going to spread, and we'll get a little fire started and burn those folks out.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from the American Games, just because as we're talking, that info isn't being put out there
Hmm.
truly, and a lot of people don't know or they don't even try to look it up. And it always surprises me the number of people that come up, go, oh yeah, my cousin, he just won a silver medal at the World Championships, and he's on the world team and last year. And I was like, oh really? What's his name? I'm thinking, okay, this is so and so's, uncle or something, and then they throw some name out there, and I was like, well, no, he was never on none of our teams, or he sure it ain't some like different world championship or some match or something, or a state match, because well no, actually I was there coaching the team, and
Yeah.
so and so and so and so and so and so were my three men.
I feel
And
like
it's
this is
just
the yeah.
amazing how often that kind of happens.
Well,
That's a
this is
great look on someone's face when that happens. I got to tell you, man, it's a great look. They're like,
Yeah,
gotta go.
Gotta go.
they use, yeah,
I
a
think
lot of
that's a
times I think
function of gun club myths also. I can't tell you how many times someone's exaggerated a claim about someone or exaggerated how many targets they shot, someone else shot, or how well they shot. Do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, I think so. Last
it's a
liars to
statistics.
tell the truth or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, there's some guys still out there. There's some people out there that are making a bit of money off of it, and
Okay.
those are the ones that they're lying to. They're getting sponsors and lying to the sponsors. They're
Oh,
lying to
wow.
the
Okay.
community. I mean, you've seen stuff out there where guys have said they've made the Olympics, won an Olympic medal, and they've thrown a parade in their town for them before they found out that
Wow.
they never went to the games.
Wow.
But there's guys taking advantage and feeding on some of these, especially junior parents that don't know any better, and don't have a clue. And some of them catch it finally and everything, but it's kind of a sad deal.
That's
Uh,
terrible.
it's
And
just
there's no way of verifying other than watching the sports, I guess. Or is there anything on the Olympic website about who are the valid coaches? Or there is? Okay.
well, I mean, as far as like the Olympians and who's on the team, it can all be researched,
Right.
but it's amazing how many people don't look it up.
Right.
I've
And
heard that shit. I've heard that shit all my life, and guys like, yeah, man, I went to this Olympics, and I'm thinking, no, 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 you didn't. And you know it because you're in the game, but there's a lot of folks that are either they're on the periphery or they're very casual or they're one discipline focused, whether it be NSC, whatever, and they believe it. And I've heard some shit.
And
I've
they forgot Google existed.
Yeah, they forget. Boom. Yeah. So um, we were shooting bunker and I was young and whatever. And we were down at Pacific Skeet and Track, and they got a bunker down there. And I was sitting there, and I was sitting there with my dad, and Tom Ruck's there. There's some guys that actually pointed a shotgun, and this guy was going on and on about being an Olympian. And I'm looking over at Dad, and I'm looking at Ruck, and I think Carlisle was down there doing it clinic or something. It was a really weird combination of guys, and this guy was just. And I'm thinking, you even at like 13, 14, I was embarrassed for the guy. This son of a bitch couldn't hit his ass, but
especially with Danny there. Danny probably let him have it. Yeah,
yeah, it was when Danny and Ruck were when Danny was traveling a lot, and I believe he was some reason doing lessons down there Pacific. But yeah, and they're just all just rolling their eyes and like, oh wow, man. But that's what they do. I mean, yeah, it is a pinnacle of the game or the shooting, but there is this disconnect that these guys use to sell their bullshit because they know
that's just even more of an indication of the terrible job as a community we're doing promoting Olympic shooters and coaches and people. Because you would never be able to claim that you're an NBA player. You know what I mean? Because everyone knows who the NBA players are and who they are and what the teams are, et cetera. But I don't know. That's a really unfortunate bit. I was actually shocked to hear about it. I've seen some claims about it online as well. I've heard stories at my gun clubs about folks doing that. So
I've had a couple people tell me their uncle or cousin made Olympic team on the years I was on the Olympic team.
Really?
Yeah,
And
that's what I'm
and
talking
I'm
about.
like, what year? No, he wasn't on that Olympic team. I and so and so and so and so was. I was at that game. I was in the final. And they're like, oh, maybe it must have been something else.
Yeah.
They're gone. It's a trip.
I've still got the qualifying books, or some of the qualifying books from Dad going back in the 60s and 70s, the big thick them they used to print out and all that. And, and you're like, I guarantee you didn't make a team because you weren't even at the fucking qualifier.
I have one of those from like 1979 or 8 or something like that. It's crazy. Yeah. 78 national champion. I don't know where it came from. My mom had it stuffed in a box somewhere. Like, wow.
Is that all online now, guys? Like who made what? I haven't checked myself, but
yeah, I think the results are online, so you should be able. Yeah, they're online.
Only back to certain years, though.
Really? Yeah, I try to look up the videos
at a point. Even the ISSF kind of took off a lot of scores. Like you can look into an individual athlete's history on ISSF and look up what they've done, and they'll show all your medals. But like looking in and going into some of their scores, a lot of their World Cups only go back so far.
Right.
And to see any of the scores, even the World Championships.
About 1991. 91 or 2, I think. It doesn't go back much farther than that.
Yeah, last time I got on my stuff, there was stuff they cut it even shorter than that, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't find some stuff. I was looking for a guy that wanted me to see if I could find something he shot in the Pan American Games in '95, I think. And
well, that's pretty funny.
It was a lot of work, and it wasn't on the ISSF. They had nothing on it.
We call it checking somebody's color. So you go on the ISSF website, you go to athlete, you plug their name in, bam, it brings them up. Check their color. Okay, let's check his color. You go in, and the kids think it's great because it used to be like all your golds were up top and then your silvers. They've kind of rearranged it now, but it's still the gold, silver, bronze coloration, so you can see the medals. So let's check your color, man. Get on there, check your color.
Checked a guy the other day that was making a claim, and I won't embarrass him, but yeah, it was the same shit. I was like, well, I made this team and this team, and we looked. The guy was so full of shit, it wasn't even funny.
Well, I'm glad that you used stolen valor, Jay, because that's what it feels like, right? When folks claim like they're Navy SEALs or they were Rangers or they're this and they never were even in the military. I mean, that is like the ultimate low of low for anyone to do that in my mind. So
it's just insulting.
Yeah,
especially the work you put in to make an Olympic team that people don't realize it takes.
Right.
The dedication, and it's just really insulting to you.
Yeah.
And it's insulting across the board to the the athletes, even some that haven't made the Olympic Games but have made some worlds and they fell a little bit short, because it's not an easy thing to make an Olympic team on the U.S. team. I mean, we're pretty deep, and and you can really see it really bothers some athletes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
looking ahead, guys, What are you guys most excited about the upcoming Olympic Games? Athletes that you've worked with, people that are coming up the ranks. What's exciting? I mean, this is going to be on, U.S. home soil, which I'm excited about. In fact, I'm thinking about bringing a group of guys down there and friends down there to go support the team because it's going to be in LA in my state. So, what are you guys excited about?
I'm excited to see it back in our country. My
Yeah,
first Olympic Games were in Atlanta. There
yeah,
was nothing like it. And
96,
I
right?
mean, I went through a lot of hell leading into Atlanta because they didn't want to let me walk in the opening ceremonies because my event was the first day and all this stuff. And, as a young kid and you're doing this, well, that's the first thing in your mind is you want to walk in with the strongest country in the world and walk into a
Absolutely.
stadium like that. And a shotgun shooter, never really has that kind of opportunity, right?
Wait,
And
ever or just in 96?
well, just in 96, but I'm saying unless you make an Olympic team,
Right.
a shotgun guy isn't going to get to walk in with a team like that in 100,000 people in a stadium, right?
Right.
And so that for me is one of the things that really pump you up when once you're there and say this is what it was all about, right? And it's just different in America because it's your home country and it's a home crowd,
Hmm.
and it's really, and that's the exciting part is that we really need to take advantage of this. It needs to be taken advantage of being in the
Right.
U.S. for shooting, you know.
Yeah, we need to bring a lot more awareness about it, I think, not just in the shooting community, but outside of it and have folks go support it. And hopefully there's going to be a lot of marketing and advertising around it. Would love to get more of the athletes maybe on the podcast so we could talk them up, learn a little bit about their backgrounds, the profiles, the sacrifices they made to get there. I think that'd be great. I'd be happy to, cover some of that.
The
That'd be
great thing with all the shooters is they all have a story.
Yeah,
There's a story with every one of them, how it came about and what they've gone through to get there and how it started and why. And everyone's almost unique, but there's some just when you get down talking to the athletes, just like my story and Jay's story, and there's a lot of really neat stories how just some little things is what etched the path,
absolutely.
you know.
And I think, getting off of Lance's thing, I'm super excited about it being at home. That's such a cool thing. But the most exciting part is the team. Wow, the way the team's just performing, everything's kind of coming together. You could kind of see this happening at the end of 24, 23, and 24. It was super gelling on a great level. So super exciting just to see the team performing at the level they're performing and see how they perform down in Peru, and knowing that we're going to go into a home games with a real good shot of coming out with some bling. So that's the exciting part for me, and just being able to watch that and hopefully get some real good coverage of it.
Yeah, we really felt we were building a team for this quad and the next quad. It was a progression, and we had such great Olympics, and we were just like, okay, here we go. Traps, traps getting there. They're built up. Here we go. So it's exciting to see it and to see them just start the season out this well. Hopefully there's no BS and anything, and they just keep a nice smooth quad going.
Mhm. And the two sports now, just forgive my ignorance, trap and skeet. Those are the two that are going to be represented, right? Anything
Right.
else that I'm
Well,
missing?
you'll have mixed trap.
Mixed also. So mixed trap, no mixed skeet. I guess there wouldn't be mixed skeet, right?
Yeah, they do it every other Olympics, every other quad.
Okay, okay.
So skeet was the,
Paris.
Right.
Yes.
in 20 was trap, then 24 was skeet, and now 28 will be trap again. And I hope a few of our athletes like they make it again and repeat, because a few of our athletes, I felt they really got robbed on some of the Olympic experience in the last two Olympic games. And talking about Tokyo, the scores being big because nobody was distracted. But, these families do a lot of support and give up a lot, and they want to go see him compete in the show, and they're happy for it. And they didn't get to have their families. They didn't get to go enjoy all the Olympic experiences and the, the, the parks and everything that would have went on because COVID
Other
had it all
venues,
shut
whatever.
down.
Yeah.
They would have had all this. I was planning on taking my family there because I knew Tokyo was going to be really cool for them. And we had saved money to take the whole family over there because my wife knows what it's like to experience it, and she wanted the kids to experience it.
Right.
And then COVID just killed it. And there was no real opening ceremonies with that 100,000 people there, and it just it makes goosebumps go up my neck right now with it. And they didn't get an experience with that. And then we go to 24 and they throw us across the country in this little town and throw us in like the shooters in like 2 or 3 little different villages. One was a hotel, dorm rooms, and they had food spread out, right? It was a major deal to get down to Paris, because we weren't in the middle of the show. And then they throw everybody on boats, and that wasn't exciting. That's not like walking into a stadium. So I just feel there's a lot of pieces of the Olympic Games, these last 2 Olympics, that our athletes missed out on. And I hope that there's a few of them that repeat. And LA is just a super great, true experience that I was lucky enough to experience with all 3 of my Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sent us to Universal Studios in Orlando. Derek and Diane Riley didn't want to go, so Derek gave me and G-Dub the tickets, and it was a big watch party. That was as close as any family member was going to get to the Olympics for that Tokyo Games.
Wow.
Right.
I got a couple more questions, gents, and then I'll let you guys go. But are there, right now, I know this might be hard to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Are there any athletes on the current team that fans should especially keep an eye on? And I know there's a lot. We have a deep, bench here, but who should people be watching? And if it's all of them, name their names and let's talk about them.
Oh, wow. How long do you have?
Right. Well, we don't need to go into full detail about each one of them, but I know we've got some really strong shooters, both on the skeet and trap side, both men and women.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah. I mean, just look at like we talked about our skeet women's program, 5-6 deep there. Of course, Kim Rhodey and Sam Simonton, a World Cup final gold medalist in 2024. Danya Vizzi, 2017, I want to say, world champion and multiple World Cup medalists. Behind her, oh wow, Caitlin Connors in there. Caitlin, I think's got 26 silvers or something like that, and a bunch. She stacked a lot of goals too, so she's very capable. And who am I missing here, Lance? Help me out a little bit.
Put me our other Olympian.
That put you guys on the spot.
Yeah, no,
we got to get these names out. People got to know who our athletes are.
Are you?
You're Austin Smith. Hopefully, Austin Smith picks up her gun again for sure, and gets back involved. I mean, she's an amazing talent, and I know she's taking a break now, but you never know what life might lead her back. You never know. Hopefully, it will. But on the guys' side, man, we're just the men's skeet program's almost getting as deep as the women's now. And we were struggling for that number 2 or 3. To Vincent there for a lot of years, and now they're knocking on the door. Christian Elliott just gold silvered this year. He's been on the cuspice of doing great things for a while now. Just had to put all the pieces together, and I think he finally got that last piece of the puzzle he needed. And same with Dustin Taylor. I mean, he's been right on that cuspice of getting things done, and and now those pieces are coming together, getting the gold here in Peru, so that's big for him, and break that ceiling, that medal ceiling for him, and hopefully explodes and starts winning a bunch more. Of course, Connor Prince, I mean, he's not on traveling with the team right now, but he's a force to be reckoned with, and I know he's training hard and ready to go. Of course, Vincent Hancock. So look, we're deep on men's skeet too. I'd take any of those guys anywhere in the world and put them up there. I know I'm missing a few here. Philip Youngman, 2020 Olympian. Yeah, I mean, it's super deep, man. Those are some of the top guys I just have in my head right now, but on the skeet side, I'll let Lance choke through trap real quick.
Yeah, well, you got Derek Mine, and he's hungry still.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Will Hinton, he's younger, and he got a taste of it. He shot super consistent. He just took a silver medal or a bronze medal over in Argentina. And then here's Glenn Eller. He's getting ready to retire from the Army here pretty soon. Gold medalist in doubles, and they took his sport away, and he's hung in there. And Trap's a little bit.
He was a silver medalist at Buenos Aires, right?
Yep. And it's a little bit different of of a game, and it's took him a little bit to figure it out and get consistent with it, right? He's always been right there knocking, had some close calls. Got when he does it, he shoots some big scores and had some rough finals. And I think he went through a learning process. Well, now he's got motivated and he's learned a few things. And then he all of a sudden walks over now and he wins a gold medal, right? And that's what he needed, that confidence in the finals and what he's kind of figured out that's given him confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten pretty good and deep. And traps, I mean, there's 30 or 40 guys in the world right now that can flat put a big score up. And you don't see a lot of back-to-back gold medalists, in this game right now. But, and then we have some young and uppercomers too, William Browning. He just won our last national championships at the age of 19 or just turned 20 by a day, or I don't even know if he was quite 20 yet. And this boy's just steadily improved. And here he wins the Open, right? He wins the Open division and he wants to go in the Army because he wants to give it a big run, right? He just got into the Army, and the Army has another young trap shooter that's doing really well too.
Is that the best path for a lot of folks because of the support that they get, the financial support?
It's a support thing. We look at it a lot like the blue collar boys. A lot of the blue collar boys go into the Army because it's just a support. They don't have as much extra money to be supported with, and it's a
that
tough
was me.
thing. Yeah, that was me. And
I believe one of my buddies, Dave Alcariza, who competed same year you did, Lance, also was through the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I like Dave.
What advice would you guys give aspiring shooters or future Olympians listening to this episode? To get them into it, to get them motivated, also to make them aware of the sacrifice that's needed.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
What advice would you give to aspiring shooters or future Olympians listening to this episode and trying to get them motivated and help them understand the sacrifice to commit to the sport?
Well, I think the biggest thing I would say is that you can't pass up any chance you get to shoot targets.
Okay.
Every opportunity you get to train on the discipline you want, you have to take it. That's my son and I talk about that because he gets fed it a lot, right? Mm-hmm. But there's times he don't want to go and shoot, and I'm like, there's a reason I can still hold a certain consistency because I got way more years and numbers of targets under my belt. You just need all the targets. And you can't let the game frustrate you because no matter how good you are, you're going to be frustrating, right? And you've got to find ways to motivate yourself. But there's nothing better than representing a shoot and having USA on your back.
Yeah.
You're representing the greatest country there was. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you what, I bleed red, white, and blue because of it. And I just think it's the greatest honor in the world to be able to go and do a sport and represent my country.
Absolutely.
And they've got to understand that. But there's also is you have to have a little bit of love for the game. I see a lot of guys that like to shoot, but you know what? Most of our top people, they love the game. They love to shoot. They love shotgun shooting. And there has to be a little bit of love there. But it's a very difficult path and it's a very frustrating path.
Yeah.
And you just have to dig your toes in the sand. You got to draw a line, dig your toes in the sand and keep going at it.
It's good advice.
And I would say, all that, don't let an opportunity pass you by. That's the first thing. Seize every opportunity that comes your way and, focus on the journey, not the outcome.
Okay.
So,
absolutely. Focus on the journey, not the outcome.
Outcome's a byproduct. So
how can us normal folks support USA Shooting or get involved with the sport in our communities?
Well, I think the first thing is go down and support a local range that you have a bunker at. And even if there isn't a bunker, you go down and you talk about the international games and the Olympic games. Because I see a trend in American trap. When I was younger, everybody played the options, a lot of options. It was a little less expensive, but you battled. And when you shot well, you paid for your shooting, if not gained a little bit, right? Well, there's not really much of that anymore unless you just go to a few of the big ones, right?
Right.
And so, you're seeing it's letting them kids know that there is a path that you can do something with your shotgun shooting. You can get decent. You can get some scholarship opportunities now in college that weren't there when I was younger. And most of it's Division II because it's not in Division I. Only rifle is, but there's opportunities there with your shooting and learning all the shooting. But there is opportunities to make some teams and be able to see the world.
Right.
And that was a big thing for me is I thought it was pretty cool to get to see the world. And it wasn't only cool to get to see the world, but it was pretty cool to get to take a shotgun or a gun with me in some of these countries that nobody else is going to get to take a gun unless you're shooting a World Cup. So it was pretty cool to be able to go and see the world and that you can actually do something with shooting and travel with the world. And there is a lot more opportunities in our industry now of getting some nice little sponsorships put together, especially for the younger juniors that are fighting there that love using social media and get some help with it. And
Right.
it's
Good to
teaching
hear.
and that's something that we never got taught. I had to learn the hard knocks way, and I probably wouldn't have had some of the opportunities if I wasn't ranked high and I didn't have a high world ranking and did a few of the things I got. I wouldn't have got some of these sponsorship opportunities. But you had to be kind of the top of your events,
Mhm.
to get and consistently to kind of get some of these opportunities where I'm seeing a lot more smaller businesses or companies putting in a little bit of sponsorship to these young guys and helping them. And a lot of these young athletes, it doesn't take a lot of work to give a lot of a nice promotion back to those sponsors. But you can get some help out there. But nobody ever taught me or helped me or anything. And I think that would be a big thing too, is to have kind of some education on it for these shooters and the younger shooters on how to develop some relationships and how to ask for some sponsorships and go about it and techniques for it that and not be scared of it, but have an understanding of it.
Mhm.
Right.
Jay, anything else to add to that about how we can support?
Well, I think it's going to be a community effort, really.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of what you're doing right now, just getting the word out there, and I can't help but think, and I'm going to date myself with this right now, but the old shampoo commercial that said, "And I told a friend," and then in the 2 boxes, and I told a friend, and then 5 boxes, and before they were done, there was 50 boxes of "I told a friend, I told a friend, I told a friend." So I really think it's going to be that type of community effort where people are just spreading the word, talking about it more, just like
Yeah.
we're doing right now. And that's going to go to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. And pretty soon, hopefully, we can get a buzz going. But it's going to have to be that kind of grassroots effort, I believe.
Yeah, and you got to take advantage of 28 games coming up in LA, in the US.
Right.
This is that piece that's got to start because '96, man, it was big. It
Right.
really spread being in the US. And we have the ability for far more exposure this time
Mhm.
leading into it, the whole thing. And I think that's a very big piece of it right there. It's this lead up coming into LA. There has to be a lot of push on that side of it and a lot of exposure. And it's going to take the shooting community to really spread it amongst ourselves.
Yeah. I
Hey,
agree.
and what one note on this too, I because they just announced the LA 28, the program or whatever, and all that. But a super cool thing, a different discipline, of course, but rifle pistol, they're going to be right downtown in the convention center, man. It's the Long Beach Convention Center. So there's going to be other events going. This is the first time ever a shooting event is going to be accessible basically from like a plaza type situation where there's multiple events going on in a small area. So typically we're sequestered off. Like in 24, we were 3.5 hours out of Paris. We weren't just walk to the plaza and you could go watch shooting. So this is a pretty big deal for the shooting sports as a whole to have this type of openness, publicity. What's going to happen here? Exposure. I'm super excited about it. I
Will you
hope.
guys be attending the 28 now that you're retired or as civilians?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it'd be kind of fun. We'll see. Traffic down there drives me crazy right now, so
Yeah.
I don't know how I could live down there during Olympic Games. But we'll see what the future brings. It's not off the table. So for sure for me.
Well, you guys are both now retired from USA Shooting. What's next for you both? We touched on Elite Shotgun Academy, but maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, yeah, and Lance and I were kind of like we're just not done, and I'll let Lance speak for himself. We still have a real good passion for the game. And being the head coach for 8 years or 7 years, 8 years, whatever it was, my run there, there was just a lot of other things. I mean, because you had to wear all the hats. You did the books, you travel agent, blah blah blah, all the things. And so coaching was kind of a secondary option there, and that's why I really leaned on Lance a lot for help in that area while I was kind of managing some match situations and whatnot. But now with the new business and launching this whole thing, it really opened me up to be able to be on the field a lot more and get some of that hands-on coaching. And the part that I really enjoy, and it's just super fun to watch the growth when you're interacting with whatever level it is, at the most beginner level, or you're trying to get in someone's head and affect a change. So it's just been really rewarding from that aspect. So I'm just really super excited what the future will bring with it.
Yeah, I'm with Jay on that. I just really enjoy the coaching side and the relationships with the guys and being able to help and see kids smile and help them through frustration and being able just to focus how we want to focus on it. None of the other BS, none of the politics, none of all the, we can deal with our stuff and show up, and the people that want to be coached by us, they're coming, they come to us. And it's really great, and I got a little fishing business on the side that I build lures and stuff for trout fishermen and everything else. So I kind of do that on the side, but we
Are you
really
still
feel
guiding
like
as well, Lance?
I still do, not as much, but I still
Okay.
do mostly birds now. I kind of getting too beat up for the big game. So when I go big game hunting, I want to do it with my buddies and my son, and enjoy that time because I give so much of that away for other people. But so I still do a little of that. I enjoy the dogs. I enjoy my bird dogs. I really do enjoy the bird hunting. That was always my escape from the high stress of the competition shotgun, to go enjoy what I'm good at. I want to go have fun with the shotgun. It's not always about competing. I don't even enjoy going and golfing and betting $1 a hole or anything anymore. That when I go golf, I want to just
Who
go
likes
relax.
golf? I mean, come on.
I compete too hard
Yeah.
at shooting at my day, and I still like to go compete at it. I mean, you don't just go beat me on the shotgun line. When I go shoot, I shoot, and I still win my fair share of stuff. But I do the fishing, but I really think the way we've approached it and our personalities and the response we're getting, it's going to take us a little bit of growing or thinking as we grow. But I think this elite's going to be a really great thing for not only the shotgun shooting community or not only the international community, but I think we're going to have a lot of impact on the American community.
So how do folks?
Skeet. We're doing a lot of American skeet, a lot of American trap too right now. I'm having guys come out of the woodwork with that stuff too. Little bit of sporting clays, our forte is the international stuff, but we know the American games really well too. And, we've learned so much about sporting on top of what we already knew because we have two of the top sporting shooters on our Olympic trap team.
Right.
And you learn a lot. And when the guys are opened up and you have good relationships, you're out there, they're waiting for that opportunity to try to teach you something and say, I told you. So it's great, and it's the opportunities. Well, it's the relationships that we've made so far.
Yeah.
We have great relationships, and all the guys on the team are still wanting us to help them. And we have a camp coming up with the Army team, and
so Lance, is that how folks link up with you guys? Are you guys setting up camps and clinics, or can they reach out to you individually? How's it going to work in the future?
Yeah, you can do both. We do a lot of individual stuff,
okay,
and private lessons because guys that are getting up towards that elite area, they want a day or two in a row to really be able to take what they're learning and have you there and reinforcing it for them. And I'll tell you one of the best things about coaching to me is when you have somebody and they want to come do a private lesson and they've been around and they come and they say, you know what, Lance, I learned more today than I have my whole shooting career from you. And those kind of comments from guys really make you feel like you're doing the right thing. Right. And it's like, okay, I'm teaching him stuff he didn't realize and you enjoy it, and we're enjoying that piece. And the private guys, they want a couple days, and you always know when you've done a good job because they want more. They want to come back and they want to do more, and the group stuff is great too because we can make it more affordable for everyone also that
Right.
may not have the funds. We can reach more younger shooters. We can make each day a little bit less expensive for them, and it allows more students and more people to be reached and more kids to be reached and get opportunities to learn how to build the foundation right and the right things and the wrong things with your fundamentals to get it going.
And then bring their coaches in and coach them up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you
And
leave,
you know what? I love the dads. I love when dads come behind. We don't mind with the coaches in some of these groups because most of the coaches, they're out there giving and they're enjoying all the kids.
Right.
And they want to get better and they want to know better and they want to know it right. You run into a guy once in a while that thinks he's got this and that, don't agree with nothing, but
by the end of the day,
it's been
he's in
really
our
good
camp.
experience. Uh,
I said by the end of the day, he's usually in our camp. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
we usually got them in our
You
camp,
got them drinking the Kool-Aid, which is good. So, well, I'd
Yeah,
love for you guys to come out to California. There's a couple of clubs here that have bunker trap that I think it'd be great to have some clinics, and
Love
maybe
to.
we can coordinate something around that. But
Would love to.
I will happily take a lesson if you'll take a average Joe for
Yeah.
your training. So,
Let's do it.
yeah, and
yeah.
we've got the Elite Shotgun Academy website, and we have
Okay.
all of our information on it. We got our phone
Perfect.
numbers on it. We're not scared. We keep it open to our athletes too to call us anytime. I've worked with a ton of kids, and I get some phone calls, but I don't get overly amount of phone calls. But I'm like, if you're really stumped or you have a question about something, feel free to call.
Okay.
This don't end because your lesson's over. If you need anything, call. But we have our info on our website and our phone numbers. We're not hard to get a hold of. We're not running from nothing.
Yeah.
And and we're just out there just to help the community. And of course, we're trying to build a business. We got to make a living to be able to give back the way we want. So,
Right. No, totally get it, and I appreciate you saying that too. I think a lot of people are going to take you up on that. I'll definitely post your website when I post this as well, and if there's any other information you'd like me to share, I want to give the last word to Gary here because I know you've been involved. And one again, I do appreciate you introducing me to these guys and us having this conversation. I think it's really important that we continue to promote Olympic sports. But Gary, having been there, on the councils and things that you've seen so far, what would you tell people, the public on how they can support and how they can get behind our teams?
Wow, that's a question, isn't it? Obviously, we don't get a lot of access to support them other than donating USA Shooting. But let me put it this way: there's some things coming down the road that are going to help get a little bit more of a connection to the shooters and get a little bit more funding directly to those shooters. I'm not going to say what it is, but there's some things we've been kicking around lately because, like I said, we've tried the proper channels, not to say it's any proper or improper, but we've tried the traditional ways and
Mhm.
it's not working. In my opinion, it's not working. So just keep watching this, keep watching the social medias, and there are some things that's going to come around. That hopefully it does come around, and hopefully that we can get some money to these kids and get them funded the way they needed it to be funded. You know, we got to take care of our athletes, and
Yeah.
we cannot squander like these guys were talking about. We've got this opportunity in the United States that we're on home soil. We can't squander this gift we've been given to help fundraise and bring awareness to the shooters. So
And
we're
maybe
working
bank a whole bunch of cash for a couple more quads, hopefully. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about because I do not want to squander this opportunity that we got presented to ourselves because I
100%
don't know
agree.
when time it's going to come back. So just keep watching it. Keep watching it. We're going to get something together.
Okay. Well, that's good advice, everyone. Gentlemen, I appreciate this. This has been a great 3 episodes here. A lot of good information. Hopefully, a lot of folks will take a lot from this, take you up on your coaching and training, but also care more about our Olympic teams and USA shooting in America. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, and remember
you,
remember to
Chris.
tell your friends when you see them.
Will do.
Thanks, man.
Good
Thank
guys,
you.
Good guys. Bye.
Take
All
care,
right.
guys.